As a new year approaches, there is a simple truth that many people avoid confronting honestly. It is not that we lack motivation. Most people are motivated. What we lack is clarity. We have been conditioned to believe that whenever something feels off in our lives, the solution is to add more effort, more goals, more discipline, more self-improvement. But very often, real relief does not come from adding anything at all. It comes from the moment we finally accept that something needs to be removed. When we tolerate everything, carry everything, justify everything, we slowly become overloaded on the inside. We feel tired without knowing why. We feel heavy without understanding what we are carrying. And over time, this internal clutter quietly drains our energy, our patience, and our sense of peace. It is important to understand that time itself is not what exhausts us. What truly drains us are the invisible weights we carry day after day without questioning them. These weights are subtle. They do not announce themselves loudly. They settle into our routines, our thoughts, and our relationships. When we speak about eliminating certain things from our lives, this is not about becoming cold, rigid, or detached. It is not about rejecting life or people. It is an act of lucidity. It is the ability to see clearly that some habits, some thoughts, and some relationships take far more space than they give back. They occupy our mental and emotional landscape disproportionately, leaving little room for what actually nourishes us. A great deal of modern suffering does not come from a lack of opportunity, love, or resources. It comes from excess pressure, excess expectation, excess comparison, excess mental stimulation. Our minds are rarely allowed to rest. We are constantly evaluating ourselves, measuring our progress, comparing our lives to fragments of other people's lives. This constant stimulation slowly suffocates what is essential.
We are constantly evaluating ourselves, measuring our progress, comparing our lives to fragments of other people's lives. This constant stimulation slowly suffocates what is essential. It disconnects us from our own rhythm and replaces it with a permanent sense of urgency, as if something is always missing or late. As we move toward 2026, it becomes essential to pause and ask a simple but honest question. What in my life costs me more energy than it gives me? This question does not require dramatic answers. Most of the time, the response has nothing to do with major events or obvious crises. It concerns small, repeated patterns, automatic thoughts that quietly undermine self-confidence, obligations accepted without reflection, relationships maintained out of habit rather than genuine connection. These elements slowly become normal. We stop noticing them, yet they continue to erode our inner peace day after day. We often underestimate the impact of subtle tensions, a low-level anxiety that never fully leaves, a conflict that remains unspoken, an expectation we carry silently, hoping someone will finally meet it. These micro-burdens may seem insignificant on their own, but together they create a constant background noise that exhausts us far more deeply than major challenges ever could. They fragment our attention and keep us in a state of internal alertness that never truly turns off. Letting go, in this context, does not mean avoiding reality or giving up responsibility. It means stopping the nourishment of what weakens us. It is an act of inner protection, not a withdrawal from life. Many people believe that changing their life requires a radical transformation, an immense effort, or a dramatic turning point. In reality, the first meaningful change often begins with a quiet internal sorting, a recognition that we do not have to endure everything, that some things no longer belong, not because they are wrong, but because they no longer align with the person we are becoming. This sorting process is rarely visible from the outside. Nothing spectacular happens, but internally, it is deeply liberating. We stop asking ourselves how to hold on a little longer and begin asking what it is time to release. This shift in perspective opens the door to a form of calm that many people have not experienced in years. Because lightening one's life is not about losing. It is about creating space. Space to breathe without pressure. Space to think without noise. Space to move forward without constantly feeling behind. One of the first things that often needs to be released is the constant pressure to be everything for everyone. Many people live with a quiet belief that they must always do more, better, and faster. Rest feels undeserved. Satisfaction feels temporary. There is always something else to fix or improve. This pressure does not always come from the outside. In many cases, it has been internalized over time through comparison and excessive self-demand. At first, it can feel like motivation, but over the long term, it acts like erosion. It prevents us from enjoying what we already have and transforms every achievement into just another obligation. Nothing ever feels sufficient. Letting go of this pressure does not mean abandoning ambition or responsibility. It means learning to distinguish between healthy effort and psychological self-violence. It means recognizing when drive turns into self-punishment, when progress becomes a reason to withhold appreciation from ourselves instead of a reason to feel grounded and present. Another essential element to reconsider is the relationships that rely entirely on one-sided effort. These are relationships where we give continuously while quietly hoping for recognition, reciprocity, or care that never fully arrives. Maintaining such relationships consumes a tremendous amount of energy. It requires us to justify the absence of the other person,
to minimize our own needs, and to normalize imbalance. Over time, this weakens self-esteem and creates a deep emotional fatigue that is difficult to identify because it has become familiar. Many people remain in these relationships out of fear of emptiness, fear of loneliness, fear of change. Yet choosing to step back is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-respect. A relationship that deserves a place in your life does not require you to diminish yourself in order to maintain it. It rests on a form of reciprocity that may not be perfect, but is genuine. There is also the mental noise we carry with us every day. Repetitive thoughts that replay scenarios, imagine worst-case outcomes, and judge our actions harshly. These thoughts are not truths. They are habits. The more attention we give them, the more dominant they become. Learning to notice them without feeding them is a powerful form of elimination. It does not involve fighting or suppressing them. It simply involves refusing to let them dictate how we live. As we approach 2026, it becomes increasingly clear that inner lightness does not come from adding new systems or strategies. It comes from gradually releasing what overloads us unnecessarily. Excess pressure, unbalanced relationships, toxic inner dialogue. Each element released creates space, and this space is not empty. It is fertile. It allows calm to emerge. It allows discernment to return. It allows a more peaceful relationship with oneself and others to take shape. Another invisible weight many people carry is the constant need for validation. Decisions are often shaped by the fear of disappointing others, being judged, or losing approval. Over time, this dependence slowly disconnects us from our own feelings. We adapt. We adjust. We remain silent. Eventually, we may no longer know what we truly want or need. Seeking approval is deeply human, but when it becomes constant, life turns into an exhausting performance.
Letting go of this need does not mean becoming indifferent to others. It means restoring our inner compass to its rightful place. There is also the habit of rumination, replaying past conversations, revisiting regrets, imagining alternative outcomes. We often believe this is reflection, but in reality, it is a loop that drains energy. Rumination gives the illusion of control while reinforcing helplessness. Learning to recognize when a thought no longer serves us and gently returning to the present moment is a quiet but powerful act. Each time we do this, we reclaim mental energy that can be invested in something meaningful. Another layer to release is the belief that everything must be controlled. The desire to anticipate every outcome and eliminate uncertainty often comes from anxiety. Yet the more we try to control life, the more rigid and tense it becomes. Letting go of total control does not mean abandoning structure. It means accepting that some aspects of life will always remain uncertain, and that this uncertainty does not have to be fought. Many people also define themselves almost exclusively through productivity and results. When output slows, anxiety appears, as if simply existing were no longer enough. Letting go of this belief does not mean giving up effort. It means remembering that worth is not measured by performance. You remain valuable even in stillness, doubt, or transition. There are also unrealistic expectations placed on life itself. The belief that things should unfold smoothly or according to a specific plan. When reality does not match these expectations, frustration and resentment grow. Much suffering comes not from events themselves, but from resisting what is. Adjusting expectations is not resignation. It is wisdom. It allows us to face difficulty without turning it into ongoing inner conflict. Then there are obligations accepted automatically, saying yes without reflection. These commitments accumulate silently and eventually saturate both time and mental space. Learning to say no clearly and respectfully is not selfish. It is an act of responsibility toward one's energy. There are also the stories we tell ourselves to avoid discomfort, the justifications that keep us stuck. Letting go of these narratives requires courage, but restores clarity. There is attachment to the past, to roles that no longer fit, to versions of ourselves that no longer exist. Letting go does not erase what was. It simply allows space for what is now. There is guilt, vague, persistent, and exhausting. The sense of never being enough. Questioning this guilt is one of the most liberating acts possible. There is comparison, measuring your life against fragments of others. This comparison never nourishes. It distracts and diminishes. There is digital overload, constant stimulation, little silence. Often, fatigue does not come from lack of time, but from lack of quiet. And finally, there is the fear of emptiness, the fear of doing nothing. Yet emptiness is often where clarity begins. As these layers fall away, one truth becomes evident. This process is not about loss. It is about repositioning. We stop living in reaction and begin living by choice. Approaching a new stage of life is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming honest, about no longer exhausting ourselves to maintain what no longer fits. What we eliminate does not define what we lose. It defines what we protect, our energy, our time, our inner balance. A simpler life is not a smaller life. It is a life more fully inhabited. And perhaps that is the most meaningful preparation for the future, not accumulating more, but learning to live lighter, clearer, and closer to who we truly are.